On June 22, 2025, a date that will forever be etched in the annals of international relations, the fragile peace in the Middle East, a peace painstakingly constructed over years of delicate negotiations, was shattered, leaving the region teetering on the brink, as American warplanes, in a display of overwhelming force, struck three of Iran's most critical nuclear facilities, sending shockwaves across the globe. The operation, codenamed Midnight Hammer, a name that evokes both precision and power, marked a dramatic and potentially irreversible escalation in the already tense Iran-Israel conflict, pushing the region closer to a full-blown regional war, and thrust the world into a new era of uncertainty, an era fraught with peril and unpredictable consequences. These strikes followed surprise Israeli attacks, a series of calculated moves just days earlier, adding fuel to an already raging fire, signaling a dangerous new phase in the standoff, a phase characterized by heightened aggression and a willingness to take extreme risks. President Donald Trump, in a televised address from the White House, announced the operation as a necessary step to neutralize a direct threat to American interests and global security, framing it as a defensive action. But the true impact, both strategically and politically, remains hotly debated among experts and policymakers alike. The attack has upended decades of painstaking nuclear diplomacy, unraveling years of negotiations and agreements, and thrown the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, the cornerstone of global nuclear security, into crisis. Iran responded with defiance, its leaders vowing revenge and condemning the attacks in the strongest possible terms, hinting at a retreat from international oversight, potentially jeopardizing the monitoring efforts of the IAEA, and a possible acceleration of its nuclear program, raising the specter of a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. The world now watches anxiously, holding its breath as tensions escalate, and the possibility of further conflict looms large. As decisions made in Washington, the heart of American power, Tehran, the center of Iranian resolve, and beyond, in the capitals of nations across the globe, will shape global security, international alliances, and the future of diplomacy for years to come. Understanding the events of June 22, the context, the motivations, and the potential ramifications is crucial to grasping the perilous path ahead, a path fraught with danger and uncertainty. For both the United States and Iran, two nations locked in a complex and increasingly dangerous dance of conflict. Operation Midnight Hammer was a meticulously planned assault targeting Iran's Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan nuclear sites. The U.S. deployed stealth B-2 bombers armed with GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, 30,000-pound bunker busters, aimed at Iran's most fortified underground facilities. 14 of these bombs were used, designed to destroy deeply buried structures that conventional weapons can't reach. The Navy launched Tomahawk cruise missiles from a submarine, targeting surface infrastructure and air defenses. This multi-pronged attack aimed to cripple both the operational core and support systems of Iran's nuclear program. By striking all three sites, the U.S. sought to sever critical links in Iran's nuclear production chain and deliver a setback that would be difficult to overcome. The choice of targets and weapons underscored the gravity with which the U.S. viewed Iran's nuclear ambitions. In the immediate aftermath of Operation Midnight Hammer, a palpable tension hung in the air. The world watched and waited, unsure of what the coming days would bring. The White House, eager to control the narrative, swiftly declared Operation Midnight Hammer an overwhelming success, painting a picture of decisive victory. President Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, key figures in the administration, claimed the strikes had effectively obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities, asserting that the threat had been neutralized. The administration framed the mission as a decisive action, a necessary step to ensure global security. They emphasized that it removed a persistent and unacceptable threat to international peace and stability. The administration's messaging, carefully crafted and disseminated, projected an image of strength, resolve, and unwavering control. The goal was to deter any potential Iranian retaliation, sending a clear message about the consequences of further aggression. Simultaneously, the administration sought to reassure allies, emphasizing the defensive nature of the operation and the commitment to regional security. Official statements emphasized the precision and effectiveness of the advanced military technology employed in the strikes. They highlighted the supposed complete and utter destruction of the targeted facilities, leaving no room for doubt about the mission's success. However, despite the confident pronouncements, the administration offered surprisingly little verifiable evidence to support its claims. Critical information such as bomb damage assessments remained classified and out of reach. Access to satellite imagery, which could have provided independent verification, was also strictly controlled. This lack of transparency quickly drew criticism, and congressional leaders expressed growing frustration. They voiced concerns over the lack of transparency and the administration's reluctance to provide detailed briefings. This secrecy fueled skepticism, both within Congress and among the public, about the true extent of the damage inflicted on Iran's nuclear program. The confident narrative, delivered with conviction but lacking in concrete details, began to ring hollow for some, leaving many to question whether the reality on the ground truly matched the administration's carefully constructed rhetoric. This growing information vacuum, coupled with the administration's tight control over the flow of news, set the stage for an inevitable credibility clash between political leaders, who were selling a narrative of success, and independent analysts, who demanded verifiable evidence. Contradicting the White House, leaked intelligence assessments painted a far less optimistic picture. The Defense Intelligence Agency suggested the strikes may have delayed, but not destroyed, Iran's nuclear program, perhaps by only months. While entrances to Fordow were damaged and surface infrastructure hit, the underground facilities likely survived. Reports indicated Iran may have moved key equipment and enriched uranium before the attack, limiting the operation's impact. Independent analysts noted that assessing damage to deeply buried sites is notoriously difficult without on-the-ground inspections. Critics accused the administration of exaggerating success or acting on incomplete information, demanding greater transparency. The White House dismissed these concerns as politically motivated, deepening internal divisions and public mistrust. Iran's response was swift and defiant, condemning the strikes as aggression and vowing to continue its nuclear progress. Tehran immediately suspended all cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, ending crucial international inspections. This move plunged Iran's nuclear activities into secrecy, fueling global mistrust and speculation. The attack shattered any remaining trust in diplomacy, empowering hardliners who argue that negotiations with the West are futile. Many fear the strikes may accelerate Iran's nuclear ambitions, as leaders now see a weapon as the only credible deterrent. The perception that international agreements offer no protection could push Iran further from the negotiating table. This shift threatens global non-proliferation efforts and risks triggering a new, more dangerous phase in the standoff. The diplomatic fallout has left the world facing a far more unpredictable and unstable future. The U.S. airstrikes have shaken the foundations of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the cornerstone of global arms control. By attacking a signatory state, the U.S. has undermined the treaty's core bargain and fueled doubts about its effectiveness. Iran's possible withdrawal from the NPT would be a monumental blow, setting a dangerous precedent for other nations. Countries may now question whether international agreements can truly guarantee their security. The strikes risk sparking a new wave of proliferation as states consider developing their own nuclear deterrence. Iran's suspension of IAEA cooperation has created an information blackout, making diplomatic resolution even harder. The attacks have not only damaged Iran's facilities but also wounded the global architecture designed to prevent nuclear war. The world is left more precarious and unpredictable than before. In a surprising turn of events, amidst escalating tensions that had gripped the region, a ceasefire was brokered between Israel and Iran, a fragile agreement aimed at halting the immediate hostilities, with President Trump playing a central role in the negotiations, leveraging his diplomatic influence to bring both sides to the table. The truce has paused immediate conflict, providing a much-needed respite from the relentless cycle of violence, but left underlying issues unresolved. The deep-seated grievances and complex geopolitical dynamics that fueled the conflict in the first place. And now, the world watches with bated breath to see if this fragile peace will hold, or if it will crumble under the weight of unresolved tensions. Preliminary talks with Iran have reportedly begun, signaling a potential pathway towards a more lasting resolution. But deep mistrust and political turmoil within Tehran's political landscape make any substantial progress highly uncertain and difficult to achieve. Iran faces tough choices, decisions that will shape its future and its role in the region. The leadership must carefully consider how to respond to domestic fallout from the conflict and the economic pressures it has exacerbated, and also decide whether to re-engage with the IAEA, allowing international inspectors to monitor its nuclear activities, and ultimately, whether to accelerate its nuclear program, a decision that could have far-reaching consequences for regional stability. The ceasefire offers a brief respite, a moment of calm amidst the storm, but it does not resolve Iran's fundamental security dilemma, the underlying sense of vulnerability that drives its foreign policy. The U.S. must now carefully manage the consequences of its actions in the region, including the damaged credibility it has suffered on the international stage and the fractured non-proliferation efforts that have been undermined by recent events. If the truce holds, it could open doors to broader diplomatic engagement, creating an opportunity to address the root causes of the conflict and build a more stable regional order. But the lack of a clear and consistent strategy from Washington leaves both allies and adversaries guessing about America's long-term intentions. Therefore, the next steps for all parties involved remain highly unpredictable, shrouded in uncertainty, and dependent on a complex interplay of political, economic, and security considerations. The U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities have transformed the Middle East and challenged global security. We know a major military operation took place, triggering a diplomatic crisis and casting doubt on the future of the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. The official narrative of success is disputed by intelligence agencies, and the true extent of the damage remains unclear. The long-term intentions of both the U.S. and Iran are uncertain, especially after the unexpected ceasefire. These events raise urgent questions about the prevention of nuclear war and the future of international law. The attack may have pushed Iran closer to seeking a nuclear weapon, undermining the very goals it was meant to achieve. Operation Midnight Hammer's consequences will echo for years, reminding us that military action rarely brings clear or lasting solutions.